Volume 2, Chapter 3rd of the Antiquary. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Antiquary, by Sir Walter Scott. Chapter 3rd. Clause. You now shall know the king o' the beggars' treasure. Yes, ere to-morrow you shall find your harbour here. Fail me not, for if I live I'll fit you. The Beggar's Bush. The German determined, it would seem, to assert the vantage ground on which the discovery had placed him, replied with great pomp and stateliness to the attack of the Antiquary. Maister Oldenbuck, all dis may be very witty in comedy, but I have nothing to say, nothing at all, to people dat will not believe deir own eyesights. It is very true dat I have not any of dese things of de art, and it makes de more wonder what I has done dis day. But I would ask of you, mine honoured and goot and generous patron, to put your hand into your right hand waistcoat pocket, and show me what you shall find there." Sir Arthur obeyed his direction, and pulled out the small plate of silver which he had used under the adept's auspices upon the former occasion. "It is very true," said Sir Arthur, looking gravely at the Antiquary. "This is the graduated and calculated sigil by which Mr. Dousterswivel and I regulated our first discovery." "Pshaw, pshaw, my dear friend," said Oldbuck, "you are too wise to believe in the influence of a trumpery crown-piece, beat out thin, and a parcel of scratches upon it. I tell thee, Sir Arthur, that if Dousterswivel had known where to get this treasure himself, you would not have been lord of the least share of it." "In troth, please your honour," said Edie, who put in his word on all occasions, "I think, since Mr. Dunkerswivel has had sae muckle merit in discovering a' the gear, the least ye can do is to gie him that that's left behind for his labour; for doubtless that ken'd where to find sae muckle will hae nae difficulty to find mair." Dousterswivel's brow grew very dark at this proposal of leaving him to his ain purchase, as Ochiltree expressed it. But the beggar, drawing him aside, whispered a word or two in his ear, to which he seemed to give serious attention. Meanwhile Sir Arthur, his heart warm with his good fortune, said aloud, "Never mind our friend Monkbarns, Mr. Dousterswivel, but come to the castle to morrow, and I'll convince you that I am not ungrateful for the hints you have given me about this matter, and the 50 Fairport dirty notes, as you call them, are heartily at your service. Come, my lads, get the cover of this precious chest fastened up again." But the cover had in the confusion fallen aside among the rubbish, or the loose earth which had been removed from the grave. In short, it was not to be seen. "Never mind, my good lads, tie the tarpaulin over it, and get it away to the carriage. Monkbarns, will you walk? I must go back your way to take up Miss Wardour." "And, I hope, to take up your dinner also, Sir Arthur, and drink a glass of wine for joy of our happy adventure. Besides, you should write about the business to the Exchequer, in case of any interference on the part of the crown. As you are lord of the manor, it will be easy to get a deed of gift, should they make any claim. We must talk about it, though. And I particularly recommend silence to all who are present," said Sir Arthur, looking round. All bowed, and professed themselves dumb. "Why, as to that," said Monkbarns, "recommending secrecy where a dozen of people are acquainted with the circumstance to be concealed, is only putting the truth in masquerade, for the story will be circulated under 20 different shapes. But never mind, we will state the true one to the barons, and that is all that is necessary." "I incline to send off an express to night," said the Baronet. "I recommend your honour to a sure hand," said Ochiltree, "little Davie Mailsetter, and the butcher's reisting pony." "We will talk over the matter as we go to Monkbarns," said Sir Arthur. "My lads," to the work people, "come with me to the Four Horse Shoes, that I may take down all your names. Dousterswivel, I won't ask you to go down to Monkbarns, as the laird and you differ so widely in opinion, but do not fail to come to see me to-morrow." Dousterswivel growled out an answer, in which the words duty, mine honoured patron, and wait upon Sir Arthur's, were alone distinguishable. And after the Baronet and his friend had left the ruins, followed by the servants and the workmen, who, in hope of reward and whiskey, joyfully attended their leader, the adept remained in a brown study by the side of the open grave. "Who was it as could have thought this?" he ejaculated unconsciously. "Mine highly kite! I have heard of such things, and often spoken of such things, but, sapperment! I never thought to see them, and if I had gone but 2 or 3 feet deeper down in the earth, mine himmel, it had been all mine own, so much more as I have been muddling about to get from this fool's man." Here the German ceased his soliloquy, for, raising his eyes, he encountered those of Edie Ochiltree, who had not followed the rest of the company, but, resting as usual on his pike-staff, had planted himself on the other side of the grave. The features of the old man, naturally shrewd and expressive almost to an appearance of knavery, seemed in this instance so keenly knowing, that even the assurance of Dousterswivel, though a professed adventurer, sunk beneath their glances. But he saw the necessity of an eclaircissement, and, rallying his spirits, instantly began to sound the mendicant on the occurrences of the day. "Goot Maister Edie's Ochiltrees, Edie Ochiltree, nae maister, your puir beadsman and the king's," answered the blue gown. "Well den, goot Edie, what do you think of all dis?" "I was just thinking it was very kind, for I darena say very simple, o' your honour to gie the twa rich gentles, wha hae lands and lairdships and siller without end, this grand pose of silver and treasure, 3 times tried in the fire, as the Scripture expresses it, that might hae made yoursell and ony 2 or 3 honest bodies beside as happy and content as the day was lang." "Indeed, Edie, mine honest friends, dat is very true, only I did not know, dat is, I was not sure, where to find the gelt myself." "What! was it not by your honour's advice and counsel that Monkbarns and the Knight of Knockwinnock came here then?" "Ah, yes, but it was by another circumstance. I did not know dat dey would have found a treasure, mine friend, though I did guess by such a tintamarre, and cough, and sneeze, and groan among de spirit one other night here, that there might be treasure and bullion hereabout. Ach, mine himmel! the spirit will hone and groan over his gelt, as if he were a Dutch burgomaster, counting his dollars after a great dinner at the Stadthouse." "And do you really believe the like of that, Mr. Dusterdeevil, a skilful man like you, hout frie?" "Mine friend," answered the adept, forced by circumstances to speak something nearer the truth than he generally used to do, "I believed it no more than you, and no man at all, till I did hear them hone and moan and groan myself on de oder night, and till this day I did see the cause, which was ein great chest, all full of de pure silver from Mexico. And what would ye have nae think den?" "And what would ye gie to ony ane," said Edie, "that would help ye to sic another kistful of silver?" "Give? Mine himmel, 1 great big quarter of it." "Now, if the secret were mine," said the mendicant, "I would stand out for half; for ye see, though I am but a poor ragged body, and couldna carry silver or gowd to sell for fear of being taken up, yet I could find mony folk would pass it awa from me at unco muckle easier profit than you're thinking on." "Ach, himmel! mine good friend, what was it I said? I did mean to say you should have de 3/4 part for your half, and de 1/4 to be my fair half." "No, no, Mr. Dusterdeevil, we will divide equally what we find, like brother and brother. Now, look at this board that I just flung into the dark, aisle out of the way, while Monkbarns was glowering ower all the silver yonder. He's a sharp chield, Monkbarns. I was glad to keep the like o' this out o' his sight. You maybe can read the character better than me. I am nae that book learned, and At least I'm no that muckle in practice." With this modest declaration of ignorance, Ochiltree brought forth from behind a pillar the cover of the box or chest of treasure, which, when forced from its hinges, had been carelessly flung aside during the ardour of curiosity to ascertain the contents which it concealed, and had been afterwards, as it seems, secreted by the mendicant. There was a word and a number upon the plank, and the beggar made them more distinct by spitting upon his ragged blue handkerchief, and rubbing off the clay by which the inscription was obscured. It was in the ordinary black letter. "Can you make out it?" said Edie to the adept. "S," said the philosopher, like a child getting his lesson in the primer. STARCH. Starch. Dat is what de woman washers put into de neckerchers and de shirt collar." "Search?" echoed Ochiltree. "Na, na, Mr. Dusterdeevil, ye are mair of a conjurer than a clerk. It's sairch, man, sairch. See, there's the E clear and distinct. Ah, I see it now. It is search. Number 1. Mein Himmel! Then there must be a number 2, mine goot friend, for search is what ye call to seek and dig, and this is but number 1. Mein wort, there's one great big prize in de wheel for us, good Maister Ochiltree." "Aweel, it may be sae, but we couldn't hook for it now. We hae nae shoes, for they hae taken them awa, and it's like some o' them will be sent back to fling the earth into the hole and make a' things trig again. But an you'll sit down wi' me a while in the wood, I'se satisfy your honour that ye hae just lighted on the only man in the country that could hae told about Malcolm Misticot and his hidden treasure. But first we'll rub out the letters on this board, for fear it tell tales." And by the assistance of his knife, the beggar erased and defaced the characters so as to make them quite unintelligible, and then daubed the board with clay, so as to obliterate all traces of the erasure. Dousterswivel stared at him in ambiguous silence. There was an intelligence and alacrity about all the old man's movements, which indicated a person that could not be easily overreached, and yet, for even rogues acknowledge in some degree the spirit of precedence, our adept felt the disgrace of playing a secondary part, and dividing winnings with so mean an associate. His appetite for gain, however, was sufficiently sharp to overpower his offended pride, and though far more an impostor than a dupe, he was not without a certain degree of personal faith, even in the gross superstitions by means of which he imposed upon others. Still, being accustomed to act as a leader on such occasions, he felt humiliated at feeling himself in the situation of a vulture marshalled to his prey by a carrion crow. "Let me, however, hear this story to an end," thought Dousterswivel, "and it will be hard if I do not make mine account in it, better as Master Edie Ochiltrees makes proposes." The adept, thus transformed into a pupil from a teacher of the mystic art, followed Ochiltree in passive acquiescence to the Prior's Oak, a spot, as the reader may remember, at a short distance from the ruins, where the German sat down, and silence waited the old man's communication. "Maister Dustansnivel," said the narrator, "it's an unco while since I heard this business treated anent, for the lairds of Knockwinnock, neither Sir Arthur nor his father nor his grandfather, and I mind a wee bit about them a', like to hear it spoken about, nor they dinna like it yet. But nae matter, ye may be sure it was clattered about in the kitchen, like onything else in a great house, though it were forbidden in the hae. And sae I hae heard the circumstance rehearsed by old servants in the family, and in their present days, when things o' that auld world sort o' arena keep it in mind round winter firesides as they used to be, I question if there's onybody in the country can tell the tale but mysell. I hae outtaken the laird though, for there's a parchment book about it, as I hae heard, in the charter room at Knockwinnock Castle. Well, all dat is very weel, but get you on with your stories, mine good friend. said Dousterswivel. "Aweel, ye see," continued the mendicant, "this was a job in the old times o' rugging and reiving through the hale country, when it was alike ane for himsell and God for us a', when nae man wanted property if he had strength to take it, or had it langer than he had power to keep it. It was just he ower her, and she ower him, whichever could win upmost, a' through the east country here, and nae doubt through the rest of Scotland in the self and same manner. Sae in these days Sir Richard Wardour came into the land, and that was the first of the name ever was in this country. There's been mony o' them sin syne, and the maist, like him they ca'd Hell in Harness, and the rest of them, are sleeping down in yon ruins. They were a proud, dour set o' men, but unco brave, and aye stood up for the weal o' the country. God sign them a'. There's no muckle popery in that wish. They'd ca' them the Norman Wardours, though they came from the south of this country. So this Sir Richard, that they ca'd Red hand, drew up wi' the auld Knockwinnock a' the day, for then they were Knockwinnocks of that ilk, and would fain marry his only daughter, that was to have the castle and the land. Laith, laith was the lass, Sybil Knockwinnock they'd called her that told me the tale. Laith, laith was she to gae into the match, for she had fa'en a wee ower thick with a cousin o' her ain, that her father had some ill will to. And sae it was, that after she had been married to Sir Richard Jimp 4 months, for marry him she maun, it's like, you'll no hinder her gieing them a present of ony bonny knave bairn. Then there was a siccan and a caithro, and as the like was never seen, and she's be burnt, and he's be slain, was the best words o' their mouths. But it was a' soutered up again some gate, and the bairn was sent away, and bred up near the Highlands, and grew up to be a fine wanle fallow, like mony ane that's come o' the wrong side o' the blanket. And Sir Richard with the red hand, he had a fair offspring a' his own, and all was lound and quiet till his head was laid in the ground. But then down came Malcolm Misticot. Sir Arthur says it should be misbegot, but they aye ca'd him Misticot that spoke it lang syne. Down came this Malcolm, the love begot, frae Glen Isla, with a string o' lang-legged Highlanders at his heels, that's aye ready for onybody's mischief, and he threeps the castle and lands are his ain as his mother's eldest son, and turns a' the warders out to the hill. There's a sort of fighting and blood spilling about it, for the gentles took different sides. But Malcolm had the uppermost for a lang time, and keepit the castle of Knockwinnock, and strengthened it, and built that muckle tower that they ca' Misticot's Tower to this day." "Mine goot friend, old Mr. Edie Ochiltree," interrupted the German, "this is all as one like de long histories of a baron of 16 quarters in mine countries, but I would as rather hear of de silver and gold." "Weel, ye see," continued the mendicant, "this Malcolm was weel helped by an uncle, a brother of his father's, that was prior of St. Ruth here, and muckle treasure they gathered between them to secure the succession of their house in the lands of Knockwinnock. Folk said that the monks in thae days had the art of multiplying metals. At ony rate, they were very rich. At last it came to this, that the young Wardour, that was Redhand's son, challenged Misticot to fight with him in the lists, as they ca'd it. That's no list or tailor's runes and selvages a claith, but a palin thing they set up for them to fight in, like gamecocks. Aweel, Misticot was beaten, and at his brother's mercy, but he wadna touch his life for the blood of Knockwinnock that was in baith their veins. So Malcolm was compelled to turn a monk, and he died soon after in the priory, of pure despite and vexation. Naebody ever kenned where his uncle the prior aired him, or what he did with his gowd and silver, for he stood on the right o' Halie Kirk, and would gie no account to onybody. But the prophecy gat abroad in the country, that whenever Misticot's grave was found out, the estate of Knockwinnock should be lost and won. Och, mine good old friend, Maister Edie, and dat is not so very unlikely, if Sir Arthur's will quarrel wit his good friends to please Mr. Oldenbuck, And so you do think that dis golds and silvers belonged to goot Mr. Malcolm Mishdigoat?" "Troth do I, Mr. Dousterstivel." "And you do believe that there is more of dat sorts behind?" "By my certie do I. How can it be otherwise? Search, number one, that is muckle as to say, search and ye'll find number twa. Besides, yon chest is only silver, and I heard that Misticot's pose had muckle yellow gold in it." "Then, my good friends," said the adept, jumping up hastily, "why do we not set about our little job directly?" "For twa good reasons," answered the beggar, who quietly kept his sitting posture. "First, because, as I said before, we had nothing to dig with, for they had taken away the picks and shules; and secondly, because there will be a wheen idle gowks coming to glower at the hole as lang as it's daylight, and maybe the laird may send somebody to fill it up, and ony way we wad be catched. But if you will meet me on this place at 12 o'clock with a dark lantern, I'll hae tools ready, and we'll gang quietly about our job a' twa selves, and naebody the wiser for it." "Be but, mine goot friend," said Dousterswivel, from whose recollection his former nocturnal adventure was not to be altogether erased, even by the splendid hopes which Edie's narrative held forth, "it is not so goot or so safe to be about good Master Mishdigoat's grave at that time o' night. You have forgot how I told you de spirits did hone and moan there. I do assure you there is disturbance there." "If you're afraid o' ghaists," answered the mendicant coolly, "I'll do the job mysell, and bring your share of the siller to ony place ye'd like to appoint." "No, no, mine excellent old Mr. Edie, too much trouble for you I will not have dat. I will come myself, and it will be bettermost. For, mine old friend, it was I, Herman Dousterswivel, discovered Master Mishdigoat's grave when I was looking for a place as to put away some little trumpery coins, just to play one little trick on my dear friend Sir Arthur, for a little sport and pleasures. Yes, I did take some what you call rubbish, and did discover Maister Mishdigoat's own monumentsh. It's like dat he meant I should be his heirs, so it would not be civility in me not to come myself for mine inheritance." "At 12 o'clock, then," said the mendicant, "we meet under this tree. I'll watch for a while, and see that naebody meddles with the grave. It's only saying the laird's forbade it. Then get my bit supper frae Ringan the pointer up by, and leave to sleep in his barn. And I'll slip out at night, and neer be missed." "Do so, mine good Maister Edie, and I will meet you here on this very place, though all the spirits should moan and sneeze their very brains out." So saying, he shook hands with the old man, and, with this mutual pledge of fidelity to their appointment, they separated for the present. Chapter 3rd.